adding a few extra touches to this little sitting room area in our home lately, and I was looking for a little table to sit next to the couch. What I had envisioned was one of those really cool old world chippy flaky little Florentine tables. What I discovered just recently at an estate sale was a little brown table just the right size with some curvy legs and some really pretty carved detail. It was $9. I couldn't pass it up. And I thought, how fun would it be to see if I could recreate that Florentine look with a few products and tools that I had at home. So I thought I would give it a try, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I'm going to take you through the steps today of how I achieved this look on this little table. And I hope you give it a try. I think it would be a lot of fun to maybe try on a dresser or some trays. There's really so many possibilities, and if you give it a try, please send me photos. I would love to see your projects. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Artisan Enhancements Leaf and Foil Size is a sticky medium that you apply to your surface just where you want the metallic finish to stick. So in most cases I will paint my surface first. Usually the foils show up best on a dark surface, but in this case I did a little sample and tried it on the wood, and it worked out really well, so I decided it wasn't necessary to paint first, which was great. I got to skip a step. So I'm using an inexpensive chip brush to apply the size because this sticky stuff is kind of tricky to wash out of your brushes. So I usually use a brush that I can toss when I'm done. So I'm trying to get into some of the details of the piece. You don't want this product on too thick, so and you don't want to go back and forth too much, but I'm going to do my best to get a thin application, and then I'm going to let it tack up. Usually takes about 15 to 20 minutes before you can apply the foil, and any areas where it's kind of milky white should dry clear, and then it'll be tacky, sticky, and ready for foil. So after about 20 minutes, my leaf and foil size is all tacky and dry, and I'm applying the bright gold foil shiny side up. I've cut it into small pieces so that it's easy to work with. This foil is sold by the foot, and as you can see, I'm laying it down in the areas where I have applied the size, and I'm burnishing the shiny side with just a kitchen scrubber. It's kind of my favorite tool to use for burnishing the foils. I'll use my fingers here and there, and sometimes a stiff small stencil brush to get in some of those little areas as well. And I don't need to be too precise for this technique because I'm going to be painting over the foil and distressing it back. So a lot of this will kind of disappear, but I want the little bits of gold showing through, just like the old Florentine finishes. So I've applied the foil all over the top of the table, as well as the details on the sides. And now I'm going to paint right over all of that gold. As painful as it is to do because it's so beautiful, but it's also a little on the shiny side for me, and I really want that aged old world look. So the color I'm using, it just looks white in the video, but it's actually old white with a little bit of cocoa mixed in. So it's got kind of a taupey color to it, so it's not too bright. It looks a little older and aged. So I'm just going to cover up all the gold and the wood and come back and do some distressing. Now I want to point out that in order to distress this, I'm not going to use sandpaper because that would just remove the gold altogether. I have to be kind of gentle in distressing over the gold. I'm going to do a wet distress technique, and in that case I don't want the paint to dry completely, so I'm going to work kind of quickly here and come back and do some distressing in just a few minutes. I'm going to let it dry, but not too long so that it's not too difficult to distress. So I've painted over the gold details that I've applied so far, and now while I wait for that paint to dry, I am using some painter's tape to add a little detail to my table legs. I'm going to do gold on one side, but on the top part I want a little pointed accent with and just in the creamy white. Now for the distressing, I am using a damp seawool sponge, and you can use any lint-free cloth for this part. And I'm really speeding it up here for you because I tend to be a little slow in my distressing and indecisive, and I don't want this to drag on too much. But basically I'm just wiping back the white paint that I had applied previously, and little bits of gold are showing through, and in some places the wood of the table as well, which I love both. I think it looks very naturally aged, and you'll see some detail shots of that here in just a few minutes. Now I'm coming back and adding some more leaf and foil size. I've got a fresh chip brush because the one that I used for my first application is dry and sticky and in the garbage. So I've got a fresh brush, and I could tape this off again, the little detail on the legs, but I'm not too concerned about perfection, and I think a little imperfection here and there really adds to the charm of this old world finish. So just applying the leaf and foil size all the way to the foot of the table legs. And I'm going to come back with that shiny bright gold foil. Once again, just as before, after 15-20 minutes of letting the leaf and foil size tack up on the legs, I'm ready to apply my foil shiny side up, and I'm using that kitchen scrubby brush from the Dollar Tree again to apply the foil and burnish the back. And it's shiny and beautiful and so easy to apply. Now, as beautiful as that shiny gold application is, it's a little too bright and new for my old world Florentine table finish. So I'm going to create a custom tinted Scumble Glaze to go over the foil as well as my distressed paint finish. So I've just put 5 teaspoons of Scumble from Artisan Enhancements into my bowl, and now I'm going to add just a little bit of Coco Chalk Paint. So I'm mixing it up, and it's going to create a beautiful custom glaze for me. Now I'm using my large round brush to just apply that Scumble Glaze right over the gold foil as well as the creamy white paint finish. I'm just going to go over the whole thing, and at this point you don't have to wipe back, but I am going to wipe back with a dry sponge. And if you want to wipe more back, you can get your sponge a little damp, but I'm going for kind of more rustic, and I don't want to take too much of the glaze off, so I'm just going to use this dry sponge for now, and I'm going to continue this Scumble Glaze application all over the whole table to give it that nice aged look. And I love how it just knocks back the gold and tones down the paint finish. I'll show you the effect here on the tabletop as well. So I'm just brushing it on, and I get into all those little cracks and crevices. And I want to point out also that I did come back and add a little bit more gold foil to my little floral details here on the tabletop. Some of them were lost. I wanted to bring a little bit more of that back. So knocking that gold back a little bit with the Scumble Glaze, but it's going to be beautiful. And I'll just continue this, brushing it on and then wiping it back all over the entire piece. And the cool thing about Scumble is that you have a long extended period of open time. So if I apply it and wipe it back, and then I decide that I need to wipe it back more, even 30-40 minutes later, I can do that. I'm not stuck with the finish. So it's really easy to work with and very forgiving. I'm using Artisan Enhancements Clear Top Coat Sealer to seal this table. It's a matte finish, which I love, especially for knocking the gold back just a little bit more and helping to give me that really aged old world finish. So I'm using my top coat brush and just applying a very thin application. I'll wait 24 hours and apply a second thin application, and that will give me the durability I need for this piece. I had so much fun creating this Florentine inspired finish, and I think this little table is a great addition to our sitting room. I hope that you will give this finish a try, and like I said before, please email me photos. I want to see your projects. Thank you again for joining me today, and happy painting!